In the year 2007, a profound silence hung heavy in the air of the old newsroom, a silence thick with dust and forgotten stories. Sarah Miller, an investigative journalist whose sharp mind had once mirrored her missing colleagues, was performing a grim ritual, clearing out the remnants of a past era, an office untouched for 15 years. Each box she lifted, each yellowed file she sifted through, felt like an archaeological excavation into a life abruptly cut short. The fluorescent lights hummed a mournful tune above her, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the stale air, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy that once defined these very walls. It was a task that felt less like work and more like an elegy, a quiet acknowledgement of what had been lost. Sarah's fingers, usually poised over a keyboard, moved with a methodical, almost detached efficiency, but beneath the surface, a dull ache persisted. Daniel Hayes, her friend and mentor, had vanished without a trace in 1992, leaving behind only questions and a gnawing void. Clearing his former office was a bittersweet assignment, dredging up memories of his infectious idealism and relentless pursuit of truth. She remembered his booming laugh, his unwavering conviction that journalism could change the world, even as the world seemed to swallow him whole. Now, surrounded by his ghosts, Sarah felt the weight of those unfulfilled promises, the lingering injustice of a life unsolved, a story left tragically untold in the annals of time. She moved towards a forgotten corner, where an old metal cabinet stood, a sentinel of neglected history. Its drawers, stiff with disuse, groaned as she wrestled them open, revealing a jumble of outdated equipment, reference books, and stacks of newspaper clippings. The air, already heavy, seemed to grow denser, pregnant with the scent of aged paper and dormant secrets. Each item was a relic, a fragment of an investigative journey that had ended in an ominous silence. Sarah felt a peculiar sense of trespassing, sifting through the intimate debris of a life that had been violently interrupted. A collection of objects that whispered tales of ambition and an untimely end, waiting for someone to listen. Tucked away behind a stack of old almanacs and a defunct tape recorder, Sarah spotted it, a nondescript cardboard box taped shut with brittle, yellowed packing tape. It was smaller than the others, heavier than its size suggested, and bore no label, no indication of its contents. A faint layer of grime coated its surface, testifying to its long slumber in the forgotten depths of the cabinet. A flicker of something akin to curiosity, a spark in the monotony, ignited within her. This box felt different, imbued with an unspoken weight, as if it had been deliberately concealed, shielded from the casual gaze of anyone who might have cleared the office before her, waiting for the right moment. With a utility knife, Sarah carefully cut through the ancient tape, the sound a sharp tear in the pervasive silence. Inside, beneath a layer of crumpled newspaper pages from 1992, lay a handful of Daniel's personal effects, a worn leather wallet, its contents long gone, a small tarnished silver locket she didn't recognize, and a collection of faded photographs, candid shots of colleagues and friends, all smiling, oblivious to the tragedy that lay just around the corner. The items evoked a pang of melancholic nostalgia, reminding her of Daniel's vibrant presence, a life brimming with potential, now reduced to these silent, inanimate memories, preserved in a time capsule. Then, her fingers brushed against something cold, metallic, and undeniably familiar. Nestled deeper within the box, wrapped in a faded cloth, was an analog camera. Its solid, weighty frame felt substantial in her hand, a relic from a bygone era of photographic technology. The lens, though dusty, still held a glint of its original purpose, a silent eye that had once captured moments in time. Sarah recognized it instantly. It was Daniel's, his trusted companion on countless assignments, a tool he cherished, a silent witness to his relentless pursuit of truth. Its presence here, hidden away, was unsettling, a jolt of electricity in the quiet room. Sarah lifted the camera, its weight anchoring her to the present, yet simultaneously pulling her back to the past. The familiar click of the shutter button, though muted by time, echoed in the stillness. Why had Daniel hidden it? This wasn't just a forgotten possession. It was a deliberate concealment. A sense of unease, cold and sharp, began to spread through her. The camera felt heavy, not just with its physical mass, but with the unspoken secrets it might contain, a silent testament to Daniel's final, desperate act before his disappearance. Her heart began to pound with a slow, insistent rhythm against her ribs. This wasn't merely a camera. It was a tangible link to Daniel Hayes, a direct conduit to his last known investigation. It represented his unwavering commitment, his unyielding resolve to expose the truth, no matter the personal cost. The object in her hands transcended its physical form, becoming a symbol of a life sacrificed, a legacy silenced. For 15 years, this camera had lain dormant, a silent guardian of untold stories, a potential key to the puzzle that had tormented so many. Sarah felt an overwhelming surge of emotion, grief, anger, but most powerfully, a renewed sense of purpose, a burning need for answers. The film counter on the camera displayed a few exposures remaining, a tantalizing hint of unfinished business. Inside its dusty casing there was undoubtedly a roll of film, waiting to be developed, waiting to speak. What dark images lay hidden within those frames? What secrets had Daniel Hayes captured in his final days that were so dangerous, so explosive, they cost him his life? The silence of the newsroom suddenly felt charged, no longer empty, but brimming with the potential of a forgotten truth, a revelation poised to shatter a 15-year-old mystery. But this was only the beginning of what was to come. The world outside the newsroom remained oblivious, but for Sarah Miller, time had momentarily fractured. Her breath hitched, a sharp, involuntary gasp tearing through the profound silence. The cold, metallic weight of Daniel's camera in her trembling hand was not just an object, it was a ghost, a direct line to a past violently severed. Her mind, usually a fortress of logical thought, reeled, bombarded by images of Daniel's infectious smile, his passionate arguments, his unwavering belief in the power of truth. This wasn't merely a forgotten relic. It was a pulsating heart, buried for 15 years, now beating again, demanding to be heard. The dust motes, once dancing innocently, now seemed to swirl with ancient secrets, coalescing around this one undeniable truth. Daniel was still here, speaking through his final, silent witness. A wave of dizzying grief, sharp and unbidden, washed over her, threatening to buckle her knees. For 15 years, the void Daniel left had been a dull ache, a phantom limb of her professional and personal life. Now, that ache flared into an agonizing wound, fresh and bleeding. She remembered the official reports, cold and clinical, concluding nothing, offering no solace. But this camera, heavy and solid, negated all those sterile pronouncements. It wasn't a conclusion, it was a beginning. A burning, almost feverish resolve ignited within her, a fierce promise unspoken but deeply felt. Daniel, my friend, your story will not remain untold. Her fingers, usually deft and precise, now fumbled slightly as they traced the camera's worn contours, a map of Daniel's final, desperate moments. The familiar scent of old film, faint but distinct, mingled with the musty air, pulling her deeper into the past. Each click of the shutter button, though silent, echoed with the ghosts of untold stories, of images unseen, of a truth deliberately buried. This wasn't just a discovery, it was a direct challenge, a gauntlet thrown across the chasm of 15 years. The camera felt warm now, imbued with a purpose far beyond its mechanical function, a silent testament to a life brutally interrupted, waiting for its voice to be found. The film counter, stubbornly displaying those few remaining exposures, was a tantalizing whisper from the grave. What secrets did Daniel deem so vital, so explosive, that he risked everything to capture them? What dark truths had he immortalized on this roll of film, knowing it could be his last act? The questions swirled, a maelstrom of possibilities, each more chilling than the last. Sarah's journalistic instincts, long honed and sharp, surged to the forefront, overpowering the initial shock. This wasn't just a personal quest, it was a professional imperative. The answers lay coiled within that dusty casing, waiting for the light to reveal them. A cold dread, sharp and insidious, began to weave itself through her nascent hope. Daniel had vanished, because of what he knew, because of what he investigated. If this camera held the key to his disappearance, then it also held the very same danger that had consumed him. Her breath caught in her throat, a sudden, suffocating realization. Unearthing this truth wouldn't be a quiet academic exercise. It would be a plunge into the same treacherous waters that had swallowed her friend whole. The stakes were impossibly high, the shadows long and menacing, stretching from the past into her present, threatening to engulf her too. The camera, a tangible link to Daniel Hayes, felt like a sacred trust in her hands, a fragile vessel carrying the weight of his final moments. Its cold metal pressed against her skin, a physical anchor connecting her to the brutal injustice of his unsolved disappearance. She imagined Daniel, his face etched with grim determination, pressing the shutter, each click a defiant act against the encroaching darkness. This wasn't merely a forgotten item, it was a potent symbol, a silent scream frozen in time, demanding an audience. Sarah felt an overwhelming surge of responsibility, a solemn vow forming in the quiet corners of her heart. She clutched the camera tighter, its weight a physical manifestation of the immense burden now resting on her shoulders. The newsroom, once a place of quiet contemplation, now thrummed with an electric energy, a silent promise of revelations to come. This wasn't just an assignment to clear an old office. It had transformed into a solemn quest, a pilgrimage into the heart of a 15-year-old mystery. The past was not merely a collection of memories. It was a living, breathing entity, its secrets waiting to be exhumed, its injustices crying out for redress. Daniel's camera was the shovel, and Sarah was ready to dig. The implicit promise, unspoken yet profoundly felt, solidified within her. This film, dormant for so long, held the power to shatter the comfortable silence that had enveloped Daniel's disappearance. It would speak of corruption, of betrayal, of the ruthless forces that had conspired to silence an honest voice. Sarah knew, with a chilling certainty, that the images hidden within those frames would not only reveal Daniel's fate, but also expose the dark network that had orchestrated it. The truth, however ugly, was finally within reach, a beacon in the lingering fog of uncertainty that had plagued her for so long. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat of anticipation and trepidation. The air, heavy with the scent of aged paper and dormant secrets, now felt charged with the potential for explosive revelation. This wasn't merely a story, it was a legacy, a life's work, culminating in this single, hidden object. Sarah's gaze hardened, her jaw setting with grim determination. She would not rest until every frame was developed, every image scrutinized, every hidden truth brought into the unforgiving light. For Daniel, for justice, for the unyielding pursuit of truth, she would see this through. The world had moved on, forgotten the name Daniel Hayes, allowed his story to fade into the archives of unsolved mysteries, but Sarah wouldn't. This camera was his final message, a desperate plea for justice from beyond the grave. It was a testament to his courage, his unwavering commitment to exposing the rot beneath the surface of society. Sarah understood, with stark clarity, that this was her moment, her solemn duty to pick up where Daniel had been so brutally cut off. His legacy depended on her, and she would not fail him, no matter the personal cost or the dangers that surely lay ahead. She carefully, almost reverently, placed the camera into her worn leather messenger bag, the weight a tangible reminder of the task that now consumed her. The quiet of the office was broken only by the steady rhythm of her own breathing. Each inhale, a renewed commitment. Each exhale, a silent promise. This wasn't just about developing a roll of film. It was about unraveling a conspiracy, exposing a network of corruption that had thrived in the shadows for 15 long years. The hunt for justice had officially begun, and Sarah Miller, armed with Daniel's silent witness, was ready for battle. But this was only the beginning of what was to come. What would you do in a situation like this? Do you think you could bear the weight of such a dangerous secret, knowing it could put your own life at risk? Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single part of this unfolding mystery. In the vibrant, sometimes chaotic, heart of the city's oldest newsroom, Daniel Hayes was a force of nature. His mind, sharp as a freshly sharpened pencil, relentlessly pursued the truth, driven by an almost naive idealism that belied the cynical world of journalism he inhabited. Daniel, a veteran investigative reporter, believed with unwavering conviction that stories possessed the power to dismantle injustices, to peel back the layers of deceit, and to hold the powerful accountable. His reputation preceded him, a beacon of integrity in an era where print media still reigned supreme, his byline synonymous with painstaking research and fearless reporting, often tackling subjects others deemed too dangerous or complex to touch. He was admired, respected, and, for some, a growing source of unease, a man who saw no fear in challenging the status quo, even when it meant staring into the abyss of corruption. But beneath the city's bustling veneer, a sinister shadow stretched, a network of deep-seated police corruption intertwined with the illicit world of drug trafficking. This was Daniel's latest, most perilous investigation. Whispers of a notorious drug lord, known only as the Shark, operating with brazen impunity, had reached his ears, hinting at protection from within the very institution sworn to uphold the law. Daniel delved deeper, meticulously connecting dots, gathering fragmented evidence that pointed towards a systemic rot, a betrayal of public trust that reached higher than anyone dared imagine. He understood the immense risk, the unseen dangers lurking in the shadows, but his journalistic resolve burned brighter than any fear, compelling him forward into the heart of the darkness. The newsroom in 1992 buzzed with a different kind of energy, a vibrant hum of typewriters clacking, phones ringing, and the scent of fresh ink mingling with stale coffee. It was a sanctuary for truth seekers, a crucible where stories were forged, and Daniel was its brightest star. Colleagues admired his relentless drive, his infectious enthusiasm, which often spurred others to push harder, dig deeper. Sarah Miller, a promising young journalist, often found herself gravitating towards Daniel's desk, absorbing his wisdom, watching his meticulous process. She saw in him not just a mentor, but a living embodiment of the journalistic ideals they both cherished, a fearless warrior for truth, unaware that the very principles he upheld would soon lead him down a path from which he would not return, silencing a voice that dared to challenge the corrupt. Sarah and Daniel shared a bond forged in late-night deadlines and the shared pursuit of uncomfortable truths. He was more than a colleague, he was a confidant, a mentor who guided her through the complexities of investigative reporting, teaching her to question everything, to never settle for easy answers. Their shared laughter often echoed through the bustling newsroom, a testament to their camaraderie. Sarah admired his unwavering moral compass, his refusal to compromise his integrity, even when facing immense pressure. She saw firsthand the toll his investigations took, the long hours, the constant vigilance, but also the profound satisfaction he derived from shining a light on injustice, unaware of the personal cost he would ultimately pay for his convictions, leaving an indelible void in her life. On the surface, Captain David Reynolds embodied the very essence of law enforcement in the city. A man of imposing stature and an unblemished record, he was respected by his peers and the community alike, a rising star within the police department. His public persona was one of unwavering dedication, a steadfast guardian against the criminal elements Daniel Hayes was so diligently investigating. No one, least of all Daniel, suspected the sinister double life Reynolds led, the carefully constructed facade that concealed a heart of darkness and a network of corruption he tirelessly maintained. He was a master manipulator, a wolf in sheep's clothing, whose outward respectability provided the perfect cover for his clandestine dealings, making him an untouchable figure in the city's criminal underworld. Emily Hayes, Daniel's younger sister, looked up to him with an almost childlike adoration. She saw in her older brother not just a journalist, but a hero, a champion for the voiceless. Their bond was deep, rooted in shared childhood memories and an unspoken understanding. She would often call him, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and pride, asking about his latest story, completely unaware of the treacherous ground he was treading. Emily represented the innocent, personal side of Daniel's life, a stark contrast to the gritty, dangerous world he navigated professionally. Her laughter, her unwavering support, was a sanctuary for Daniel, a reminder of the good he was fighting for, a light that would soon be tragically dimmed by his disappearance, leaving her in an enduring state of grief and uncertainty. The city, though outwardly thriving, harbored a palpable undercurrent of unease, a silent acknowledgement that something was deeply amiss. The streets, while vibrant by day, held a different kind of tension after dark, a quiet fear that permeated certain neighborhoods. Corruption, though unspoken, was an open secret to those who knew where to look, a festering wound beneath the polished surface of civic pride. It was a climate ripe for exploitation, where power could be bought, and justice often sold to the highest bidder. Daniel Hayes, with his relentless pursuit, was threatening to expose this delicate, yet dangerous balance, disrupting the comfortable complacency of those who benefited from the shadowy alliances that governed the city's hidden corners. As the days dwindled towards his disappearance, Daniel grew increasingly intense, his focus almost singular. He spent countless hours holed up in his office, his desk littered with notes, maps, and cryptic phone numbers. He spoke in hushed tones, his eyes alight with a mixture of excitement and grim determination, hinting at a breakthrough, a vital piece of the puzzle finally falling into place. Sarah noticed the change, the heightened sense of urgency, the subtle shift from professional dedication to an almost obsessive quest. He was getting dangerously close, too close, to the truth, a truth so explosive it would shake the very foundations of the city. He carried his trusted analog camera everywhere, a silent witness to the impending storm, capturing fragments of a story that would soon cost him everything. Daniel's descent into the city's underbelly was not a sudden plunge, but a gradual, meticulous erosion of his personal life, each late night at the newsroom a testament to his unwavering commitment. His office, once a bustling hub of journalistic camaraderie, slowly transformed into a fortress of solitude, its walls adorned with maps crisscrossed by red string, suspect names highlighted in an array of neon markers. He worked in a self-imposed isolation, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the gnawing certainty that he was on the precipice of something monumental, something that could shatter the city's carefully constructed facade of order. The scent of stale paper and impending truth hung heavy in the air around him, a silent companion to his relentless pursuit, pushing him further into the dangerous shadows of the city's hidden power structures. The shark's influence, though rarely seen, was felt in the subtle shifts of power, the whispered rumors, the chilling efficiency with which dissent was silenced, an omnipresent force that controlled the city's illicit currents. This wasn't just about street-level drug deals. It was a sophisticated, insidious web, intricately woven into the very fabric of the city's infrastructure, from its ports to its highest offices. His network operated with a predatory precision, its tendrils reaching into every corner, from the docks where illicit shipments arrived to the polished offices where deals were brokered. Daniel understood he wasn't just fighting a criminal, he was challenging a deeply entrenched system, a hydra-headed beast that would not yield its secrets easily, its power maintained through fear and the unwavering loyalty of its corrupt enforcers. Captain David Reynolds, outwardly the epitome of law and order, watched Daniel with a chillingly detached amusement, a predator observing its prey, a calculating gaze that missed nothing. He understood Daniel's relentless nature, having seen it in action on other, less dangerous, stories where the stakes were not so personally entwined with his own illicit operations. But this time, Daniel was treading on sacred ground, threatening the carefully cultivated empire Reynolds had helped build and protect, a delicate balance of power and profit. Subtle warnings had been issued, veiled threats delivered through intermediaries, but Daniel, blinded by his idealism, had pressed on. Reynolds, a master of manipulation, knew precisely when to tighten the noose, when to escalate from intimidation to something far more permanent, his calm exterior masking a ruthless resolve. Sarah, observing Daniel from her neighboring desk, felt a growing unease settle deep in her gut, a cold premonition she couldn't shake, a silent alarm bell ringing in the quiet corners of her mind. His once booming laugh was now a rare, strained chuckle. His eyes, usually alight with mischievous energy, held a haunted, distant quality, as if he carried a burden too heavy to share. She tried to engage him, to offer help, to pierce the veil of secrecy he had drawn around himself, but he would simply smile, a tired, evasive gesture, and retreat further into his self-made labyrinth of notes and theories. The unspoken tension between them was palpable, a silent acknowledgment of the danger he was courting. She worried, not just as a colleague but as a friend, sensing the invisible walls closing in around him, a trap he seemed determined to walk into. Emily Hayes, miles away, still felt the subtle shifts in her brother's demeanor through their weekly phone calls, a fragile thread connecting them across the distance. His voice, usually brimming with the day's triumphs or frustrations, had become guarded, laced with an almost imperceptible weariness, a hint of the immense pressure he was under. He'd dismiss her concerns with a forced cheerfulness, assuring her he was fine, just chasing a big story. But Emily knew Daniel. She sensed the unspoken burdens, the weight of the truths he carried, the dangers he was facing. Their last conversation, a week before his disappearance, was brief, almost hurried, a poignant memory of a brother trying to protect his beloved sister from the shadows that were rapidly engulfing his world. A final, fleeting moment of normalcy. The city itself, a vibrant mosaic of dreams and desperation, held a duality that few truly understood, a stark contrast between its public face and its hidden underbelly. Its gleaming skyscrapers and bustling financial districts projected an image of prosperity and progress, a modern metropolis thriving on ambition and innovation, a beacon of opportunity. Yet, beneath this polished veneer, a different pulse beat, a darker rhythm of illicit dealings, backroom agreements, and the quiet desperation of those caught in the system's unforgiving grip. It was a city where justice often wore a blindfold, not out of impartiality, but out of convenience, a place where the powerful could operate with impunity, their sins washed away by the tides of indifference and complicity, a silent testament to the rot Daniel was determined to expose. Daniel's analog camera, a sturdy, unassuming instrument, became more than just a tool. It was his silent confidant, an extension of his own unwavering gaze, a repository for the truths he couldn't yet articulate. He carried it everywhere, a constant companion, its lens a vigilant eye, capturing fragments of a reality too dangerous to voice aloud, too explosive for the city's fragile peace. Each click of the shutter was an act of defiance, a quiet rebellion against the forces that sought to obscure the truth, a physical manifestation of his unwavering resolve. He meticulously documented everything, from clandestine meetings in dimly lit alleys to the subtle exchanges that hinted at deep-seated corruption, trusting this machine to hold the evidence that could eventually speak for him, a desperate act of preservation against an unknown future. As the final days before his disappearance bled into each other, an almost suffocating tension enveloped Daniel, a palpable sense of foreboding that permeated his every waking moment. He felt the net tightening, the subtle shifts in the air, the cold stares from uniformed officers he once trusted, now laced with malice. He knew he was close, dangerously close, to assembling the undeniable proof that would expose Captain Reynolds and the Shark's entire operation, a truth that would shake the city to its core. There was a grim resolve in his eyes, a desperate urgency to finish his work, knowing that each photograph, each meticulously scribbled note, was a step closer to justice, but also a step closer to an inevitable, violent confrontation. The storm was not just coming, It was already breaking around him. The air in the makeshift darkroom, thick with the acrid scent of developing chemicals, pressed in on Sarah Miller, amplifying the frantic rhythm of her own heart. Under the dim, crimson glow of the safety light, she meticulously guided the ancient roll of film through the solutions, each swish and dip a silent prayer, a desperate plea to the past. 15 years of dust and silence had accumulated on Daniel's camera, but the film, remarkably preserved, held the potential to shatter that silence, to finally give voice to the unspoken truths Daniel died trying to expose. Her hands, usually steady, trembled slightly, the anticipation a cold knot in her stomach, knowing that within these fragile frames lay either the bitter confirmation of a life lost to obscurity, or the explosive revelation that would ignite a long-dormant quest for justice. The seconds stretched into an eternity, pregnant with the weight of untold stories. As the first images slowly bled into existence on the photographic paper, a gasp escaped Sarah's lips, a sharp, involuntary sound that pierced the darkroom's heavy quiet. Initially, mundane street scenes flickered into view, the ordinary backdrop of a city oblivious to the brewing storm. Then, a stark shift. The next frame solidified into a chilling tableau. A dimly lit warehouse interior, crates stacked high, and in the foreground, unmistakable, the notorious figure known only as the Shark. His predatory smirk, captured in grainy detail, sent a shiver down her spine. Standing beside him, casually conversing, were several uniformed police officers, their faces obscured by shadow, yet their presence undeniable, a stark visual confirmation of the corruption Daniel had chased so relentlessly. This was it, the first undeniable crack in the 15-year-old wall of silence. The true horror, however, revealed itself in the subsequent frames, each one a hammer blow to Sarah's professional composure and personal grief. One image, clearer than the rest, brought a wave of nausea. There, in the center of the clandestine meeting, his face illuminated by a single, harsh overhead light, was Captain David Reynolds. His uniform, usually a symbol of authority and integrity, now seemed a grotesque masquerade, his easy conspiratorial demeanor with the Shark, a chilling testament to his profound betrayal. Daniel's mentor, a beacon of law and order, was not just complicit. He was a central player, a puppet master in the very network Daniel sought to dismantle. The sheer audacity, the depth of the deceit, painted on that photographic paper, was almost too much to bear. The visual evidence continued to mount, each developed photograph a piece of a horrifying mosaic. Sarah meticulously laid them out on a clean surface, the growing collection a testament to Daniel's meticulous, dangerous work. There were shots of different officers in various locations, a secluded alleyway, the back room of a seemingly legitimate business, even what looked like a private residence. All engaged in what appeared to be illicit exchanges or hushed conversations with known associates of the Shark. The pattern was undeniable, the scope of the corruption far wider than any isolated incident. This wasn't just a few bad apples. This was a systemic rot, deeply embedded within the city's protective institutions, a truth so pervasive it had consumed Daniel Hayes. But then, Sarah's eyes landed on a specific photograph, one that seemed almost innocuous at first glance, yet held a chilling secret that transcended mere corruption. It was an image taken from a slightly elevated vantage point, capturing the rear of a modest suburban house. The details were sharp: a distinctive gnarled oak tree, a weathered garden shed, and a freshly dug, slightly disturbed patch of earth near the back fence. A cold wave of recognition washed over her, a visceral dread that had nothing to do with the illicit dealings of the Shark. This wasn't just any backyard. It was the backyard of Captain David Reynolds' known residence, a place she had driven past countless times, now imbued with a sinister, unspeakable significance. The implications were staggering, almost paralyzing. Daniel's body. The thought, cold and sharp, cut through her. For 15 years, the official narrative had been a disappearance, a vanishing act with no trace. But this photo, with its mundane yet horrifying detail, screamed murder, a deliberate burial, a carefully orchestrated cover-up. Sarah knew she couldn't carry this burden alone, nor could she risk revealing it to just anyone. Her gaze hardened, her resolve steeling against the profound fear that threatened to engulf her. She needed an ally, someone within the system who still believed in justice, someone brave enough to confront the darkness that these photographs had brought to light. Her thoughts turned to Lieutenant Mark Jenkins, head of Internal Affairs. Approaching Lieutenant Mark Jenkins was a calculated risk, a gamble against institutional inertia and deep-seated loyalties. Sarah presented the camera, the developed photographs, and Daniel's meticulous notes, her voice calm despite the storm raging inside her. Jenkins, a man known for his cautious, by-the-book approach, initially met her claims with professional skepticism. He listened intently, his expression unreadable, then ordered a full forensic analysis of the camera, the film, and the negatives. Dr. Anya Sharma, the department's leading forensic expert, meticulously examined every detail, confirming the authenticity of the vintage camera and the integrity of the 1992 film, a crucial validation that slowly chipped away at Jenkins' inherent doubt, replacing it with a growing sense of grave concern. The forensic report, delivered with Dr. Sharma's characteristic precision, was irrefutable. The camera was indeed Daniel Hayes's, the film dated to his last known days. More importantly, the images were authentic, untampered, a chilling testament to the truth. Armed with this incontrovertible evidence, particularly the incriminating photograph of Captain Reynolds' backyard with its disturbing patch of disturbed earth, Lieutenant Jenkins knew he could no longer stand by. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity, transforming a journalist's hunch into a credible, actionable lead. The time for caution was over. The time for action had arrived. Jenkins secured a search warrant for Captain Reynolds' residence, the legal document, a potent weapon against 15 years of silence. What they found next would change everything. The air thickened with a palpable tension as Lieutenant Mark Jenkins, flanked by a team of uniformed officers, approached Captain David Reynolds' suburban residence, the search warrant clutched firmly in his hand. Sarah Miller stood a respectful distance away, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs, a knot of dread and desperate hope twisting in her stomach. The house, once a symbol of quiet domesticity, now loomed under the harsh morning light, an ominous sentinel guarding its dark secrets. Each officer's step on the manicured lawn felt heavy, deliberate, a stark contrast to the casual visits Sarah had once paid this very neighborhood, oblivious to the horrors it concealed. The quiet hum of the patrol cars, the distant chirping of birds, all seemed to amplify the profound silence of the impending confrontation, a silence pregnant with the weight of 15 years of unanswered questions, poised to shatter. Jenkins' gaze, sharp and unwavering, immediately fell upon the distinctive gnarled oak tree and the weathered garden shed Daniel's photograph had so clearly depicted. He directed the team towards the back fence, to the specific patch of earth Sarah had identified, a seemingly innocuous detail in a picture that now held the key to a missing life. The ground there, though superficially smoothed by time, still bore subtle inconsistencies, a faint undulation that spoke of recent disturbance, a hidden scar beneath the surface. Sarah watched, her breath held captive in her lungs, as the first shovel broke the soil, the mundane scrape of metal against earth echoing like a gunshot in the morning stillness. Each scoop of dirt felt like an excavation not just of the ground, but of the very fabric of her own memory, a horrifying journey back to a past she desperately wanted to understand. As the officers meticulously began their excavation, the initial layers of topsoil gave way to something far more unsettling. The earth, once firm, became looser, yielding with an unnatural ease, a clear indication of past interference. Then, the glint of metal caught an officer's eye. Not a bone, not a body, but a small tarnished silver locket, identical to the one Sarah had found in Daniel's hidden box. It lay partially buried, a fragile, almost ethereal link to the man they sought, a chilling confirmation that they were indeed in the right place, closing in on a truth too long denied. A collective gasp rippled through the small group, a shared acknowledgement of the profound significance of this small, personal artifact, a silent scream from the past. Sarah's eyes welled, blurring the scene, as a wave of overwhelming grief and a fierce, renewed resolve washed over her. The methodical digging continued, each shovelful revealing more of the disturbed earth, more of the grim reality. Then the unmistakable outline of what appeared to be heavy-duty tarp emerged, buried deep beneath the surface, carefully wrapped and concealed. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and acrid, the unmistakable odor of decomposition. Sarah felt a cold dread seep into her bones, a visceral certainty that the 15-year-old mystery was about to be brutally, undeniably solved. The quiet professionalism of the officers barely masked the somber gravity of the moment, their faces grim, their movements precise, knowing that they were unearthing not just a body, but a profound betrayal of justice and trust, a secret buried for far too long. With agonizing care, the team slowly uncovered the wrapped remains. It was undeniable. A human skeleton, meticulously bound and wrapped, lay beneath the earth, a silent testament to a life violently taken. The scene was secured with immediate, somber efficiency, yellow police tape quickly cordoning off the area, transforming the suburban backyard into a crime scene. Dr. Anya Sharma, the forensic expert, was called to the scene, her presence a cold, scientific counterpoint to the raw emotion of the discovery. Her initial assessment, delivered in hushed tones, confirmed the worst. These were indeed human remains, likely having been buried for an extended period. The air crackled with a chilling finality, replacing all lingering doubt with an undeniable, devastating truth, sealing Daniel's fate. The discovery of Daniel Hayes' remains, buried in the backyard of Captain David Reynolds, sent shockwaves through the entire investigation. This wasn't merely a case of corruption. It was a cold-blooded murder, a direct, undeniable link between the respected police captain and the disappearance of an idealistic journalist. The carefully constructed facade of Reynolds' life, his reputation as an upstanding officer, crumbled into dust, revealing the monstrous truth beneath. The implications were staggering. A police captain, directly involved in the murder of a journalist, investigating his own illicit dealings. The quiet suburban street, once a picture of tranquility, now bore witness to a crime that would shake the city to its core, a brutal testament to the depths of betrayal and the ruthless power of the corruption Daniel had dared to expose. For Sarah, the sight of Daniel's final resting place brought a fresh, agonizing wave of grief, but also a hardening of her resolve. The pain was sharp, visceral, a stark reminder of the friend she had lost, the future he had been denied. Yet, alongside the sorrow, a fierce, almost vengeful determination ignited within her. Daniel was no longer just a missing person. He was a murder victim, his sacrifice finally, tragically confirmed by the very ground beneath their feet. The camera, his silent witness, had finally spoken, leading them to this horrifying truth. She looked at the excavated grave, then at Jenkins, a silent understanding passing between them. This was no longer just an investigation. It was a crusade, a solemn vow to ensure Daniel's death would not be in vain, that his story would finally be heard. Dr. Sharma's team meticulously began the delicate process of exhumation. Each fragment of bone, each piece of evidence, handled with painstaking care. The initial forensic observations pointed to a violent end, though the exact cause of death remained shrouded in the 15 years of earth and decay. The remains were carefully transferred to the morgue for a comprehensive autopsy, a grim scientific quest to piece together Daniel's final moments, to give voice to the silence of his death. The scene was documented with exhaustive precision, every angle photographed, every detail recorded, laying the groundwork for the monumental task ahead. The discovery was just the first, brutal step, revealing the chilling truth of Daniel's fate. What the autopsy would reveal next, however, would escalate the horror beyond imagination. What they found next would change everything. The morgue's sterile air, cold and unforgiving, offered no comfort, only the stark reality of what lay on the stainless steel table. Dr. Anya Sharma, her face a mask of grim professionalism, worked with a focused intensity, her gloved hands meticulously examining the skeletal remains now identified as Daniel Hayes. The initial confirmation came swiftly. Dental records, painstakingly cross-referenced with archived files from 1992, matched perfectly. Daniel Hayes was no longer just a missing person, a haunting memory. He was a confirmed victim, his life brutally extinguished and hidden for 15 long years. The small, tarnished silver locket, found near the burial site, lay on a separate tray, a silent, poignant confirmation, its delicate chain a stark contrast to the violence it now represented. Sarah Miller, present at Jenkins' insistence, watched from a distance, her own grief a cold, heavy weight in her chest, but beneath it, a burning resolve. This was just the beginning of Daniel's true story. The second phase of the autopsy peeled back layers of silence, revealing a horrifying narrative of Daniel's final moments. Dr. Sharma's detailed report, delivered with chilling objectivity, confirmed a brutal end. Multiple blunt force traumas to the skull, consistent with a severe beating, and defensive wounds on the forearms indicating a desperate struggle. But it was the discovery of a specific, small-caliber bullet lodged near the spine, a detail missed by initial surface examinations, that truly escalated the horror. This wasn't just a beating. It was an execution, meticulously planned and ruthlessly carried out, designed to silence him permanently. The bullet, extracted with surgical precision, became a tangible piece of the puzzle, a metallic whisper of the ultimate betrayal. Daniel hadn't just vanished. He had been silenced, systematically, by forces determined to bury his truth along with his body, making his pursuit of justice a fatal, personal vendetta. Captain David Reynolds, brought in for questioning regarding the Daniel Hayes case, maintained an unnervingly calm demeanor. His uniform, crisp and impeccably pressed, seemed to mock the gravity of the accusations, a stark contrast to the grim reality unearthed from his own backyard. He spoke in measured tones, his answers rehearsed, denying any knowledge of Daniel Hayes, remains, or the extensive corruption photographs. A tragic misunderstanding, he stated, his eyes devoid of emotion, a setup by enemies seeking to discredit my long and honorable service. He painted himself as a victim, a respected officer targeted by malicious forces, his carefully constructed facade of integrity still firmly in place, even as the walls began to close in around him. His composure was a testament to his ruthlessness, a chilling display of control in the face of overwhelming evidence. Lieutenant Jenkins, however, was prepared. He laid out the developed photographs on the interrogation table, images of Reynolds conversing casually with the shark in dimly lit warehouses, of other uniformed officers receiving what appeared to be illicit payments. Then came the autopsy report, its clinical language detailing Daniel's brutal murder, followed by the undeniable proof of the burial site in Reynolds' own backyard. The captain's composure began to fray, a subtle flicker of fear in his eyes, a tightening of his jaw. He shifted in his seat, his denials growing less confident, more desperate. Coincidence? He stammered, his voice losing its steely edge. Unrelated incidents, taken out of context, but the weight of the evidence, meticulously gathered by Daniel, and now resurrected by Sarah, was too heavy to ignore, slowly crushing his carefully crafted lies. Back at the burial site, Dr. Sharma's forensic team continued their painstaking work, unearthing more than just remains. Beneath the tarp, embedded in the disturbed soil, they discovered fragments of a specific type of industrial-grade plastic sheeting, commonly used in commercial shipping operations, a detail that immediately resonated with the known activities of the shark and his illicit cargo. Furthermore, trace amounts of a unique chemical compound, typically associated with the processing of a potent synthetic drug, were detected, hinting at the type of contraband Daniel was investigating. These findings were not isolated. They were direct physical links, threading the crime scene not just to Reynolds but directly into the heart of the shark's vast and insidious drug empire. turning a murder investigation into a full-blown organized crime takedown. The evidence from the burial site and the bullet, coupled with Daniel's photographs, painted a chilling picture of the shark's intricate network. The industrial plastic sheeting pointed to a specific port operation, one that had long been suspected of being a hub for illicit imports. The unique drug residue suggested a particular manufacturing process, linking the operation to known criminal enterprises operating in the city's outskirts. This wasn't merely a drug lord, it was a sophisticated logistical operation, protected and facilitated by a deeply entrenched network of corrupt officials. The shark wasn't just a recipient of police protection, he was a partner, a key player in a criminal enterprise that had infiltrated the very institutions meant to protect the public, operating with brazen impunity for years, thanks to his powerful allies. As the investigation gained momentum, Sarah found herself increasingly in the crosshairs. Anonymous phone calls, chillingly silent, began to plague her home and office lines. A brick, wrapped in a threatening note, shattered her apartment window one evening, the message stark. "Drop it," or "You're next." The cold metal of Daniel's camera, now a symbol of both justice and immense danger, felt heavier in her bag, a constant reminder of the price of truth. The locket, which she now kept close, became a tangible connection to Daniel's sacrifice, fueling her resolve even as fear gnawed at her. She realized, with a cold certainty, that unearthing Daniel's story meant stepping into the very same treacherous waters that had swallowed him whole, risking her own life to finish what he started, to ensure his voice was finally heard. Lieutenant Jenkins, while outwardly resolute, encountered significant internal resistance. Files related to the shark's past activities had mysteriously vanished from police archives. Key witnesses suddenly became unreachable or developed convenient memory lapses. Calls to other departments seeking historical data on similar corruption cases were met with polite but firm stonewalling. It became clear that Captain Reynolds wasn't acting alone, nor was the cover-up a simple act of complicity. There were powerful forces, deeply embedded within the police institution itself, actively working to obstruct justice, to protect the very network Daniel had died exposing. This wasn't just about a few bad apples. It was a systemic rot, reaching higher echelons than Jenkins had initially dared to imagine, threatening to derail the entire investigation. A breakthrough came in the form of a terrified former police dispatcher, a woman named Maria Rodriguez, who Daniel had subtly cultivated as a source years ago. Driven by guilt and fear, she reached out to Sarah, revealing that on the night of Daniel's disappearance, she had overheard a frantic, coded radio exchange between Reynolds and another high-ranking officer, discussing a package disposal and loose ends. She had dismissed it at the time, but the details, now recalled with chilling clarity, pointed to a coordinated effort to dispose of Daniel's body and his evidence. Maria's testimony, though delivered with a trembling voice, was a critical piece of the puzzle, confirming the premeditated nature of the murder and implicating at least one other senior officer in the immediate aftermath of the crime. Maria's information, combined with Daniel's cryptic notes, led Sarah and Jenkins down a rabbit hole of financial records and obscure shell corporations. They uncovered a complex web of illicit transactions, funneling vast sums of money from the shark's drug operations through legitimate-looking businesses, some with surprising ties to local political figures and city council members. The scale of the conspiracy was breathtaking, extending far beyond the police department, reaching into the very heart of the city's civic governance. This wasn't just about drug money and police protection. It was about power, influence, and the systematic subversion of justice for personal gain, a cancerous growth that had metastasized throughout the city's core, poisoning everything it touched. The evidence was now overwhelming, pointing to a sprawling criminal enterprise with roots in the highest levels of the city's power structure, all designed to protect the shark and his illicit empire. Jenkins, with Sarah's unwavering support, prepared for a series of high-profile arrests, knowing that striking at the heart of such a powerful network would provoke a dangerous, unpredictable backlash. The final piece of Daniel's puzzle, A name scrawled on a hidden page in his notebook pointed to a powerful shadowy figure, a Mr. Thorne, who seemed to be the ultimate architect of the entire operation. As they geared up for the most audacious move of the investigation, a chilling message appeared on Jenkins' desk. Some truths are better left buried. The game had escalated, and the true mastermind was still lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. The chilling message, "Some truths are better left buried," wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration of war, a direct challenge from the shadowy figure known as Mr. Thorne. The note, meticulously typed and devoid of any identifiable fingerprints, lay starkly on Lieutenant Jenkins' polished desk, a stark reminder that the battle they waged was far from over, and indeed was escalating to terrifying new heights. Sarah Miller, her eyes scanning the ominous words, felt a cold dread intertwine with a fierce surge of defiance. This wasn't merely a message, it was a gauntlet thrown, confirming that Daniel's pursuit had indeed unearthed a conspiracy far grander and more dangerous than they had initially conceived. The air in Jenkins' office, usually sterile and controlled, now crackled with an electric tension, a palpable sense of an unseen enemy tightening its grip. Jenkins, a man accustomed to the calculated risks of police work, felt the insidious creep of institutional fear, a silent, pervasive force attempting to derail their progress. Files related to the Sharks' previous arrests and known associates had not just vanished. They had been systematically purged from secure digital and physical archives, leaving gaping holes in their investigative timeline. Calls to other city departments, ostensibly for mundane interagency cooperation, were met with an almost synchronized stonewalling, a polite but firm refusal to share even the most innocuous data. It became alarmingly clear that Captain Reynolds was merely a pawn, a visible face in a much larger game, and the true orchestrators of Daniel's demise were deeply embedded, their tendrils reaching into every corner of the city's power structure. Maria Rodriguez, the former police dispatcher, now under protective custody, provided a crucial, terrifying piece of the puzzle. Her trembling voice recounted the fragmented radio exchange from 1992, detailing how Reynolds, in a chillingly calm tone, had discussed package disposal with a high-ranking officer, whom she now, after much agonizing, identified as Deputy Chief Robert Maxwell. Maxwell, a man known for his political ambitions and unblemished public image, had then calmly issued instructions for loose ends to be tied off, a chilling euphemism for disposing of evidence and ensuring silence. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act of violence. It was a meticulously coordinated cleanup operation, implicating the highest echelons of the police force in the immediate aftermath of Daniel's murder. A shocking betrayal that shattered Sarah's lingering faith in the system. Armed with Maria's explosive testimony, Sarah and Jenkins pivoted their investigation, shifting from street-level corruption to the labyrinthine world of white-collar crime. Daniel's cryptic notes, filled with seemingly random dates and obscure company names, suddenly coalesced into a terrifying roadmap. They meticulously cross-referenced these leads with public financial records, tax filings, and property deeds. A painstaking process that slowly began to expose a complex web of illicit transactions. The trail led them through a series of shell corporations, each one a cleverly constructed decoy, masking the true beneficiaries of the Sharks' vast drug empire, a financial octopus stretching its tentacles far beyond the city's criminal underworld. The financial investigation, spearheaded by a small, trusted team from internal affairs, uncovered a staggering flow of dirty money. Millions of dollars, laundered through seemingly legitimate businesses like construction firms and real estate development companies, were funneled into offshore accounts and then meticulously reinvested in the city itself. The sheer volume of these transactions painted a picture of an empire built on illicit gains, expertly camouflaged within the legal economy. But the most shocking revelation came from the beneficiaries of these complex financial schemes. Not just the Shark and his direct associates, but a disturbing number of local political figures, including city council members and even a prominent judge, their names appearing subtly in the convoluted paper trail, revealing a deep, systemic rot at the very heart of civic governance. The implications of these political ties were profound and deeply unsettling. Daniel Hayes' murder was not merely about silencing a journalist who exposed corrupt police officers protecting a drug lord. It was about protecting a sprawling, multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise that had infiltrated the very democratic processes of the city. The corrupted officials were not just accepting bribes, they were actively facilitating the Sharks' operations, using their power and influence to smooth over legal hurdles, manipulate zoning laws, and ensure a steady flow of illicit goods and profits. This was a sophisticated, cancerous growth that had metastasized throughout the city's core, poisoning everything it touched, making Daniel's pursuit of truth a direct threat to a deeply entrenched power structure. As the scope of the conspiracy widened, so too did the threats against Sarah. The initial brick through her window felt almost quaint in comparison to the calculated escalation. Her car tires were slashed, not once, but twice, accompanied by a chilling note left on her windshield. Last warning, dig deeper, die slower. She received anonymous calls where she could hear muffled whispers, her own name spoken in a sinister, disembodied tone. The locket, Daniel's locket, which she now wore constantly, became a tangible connection to his sacrifice, fueling her resolve even as fear gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the perilous path she now walked, echoing his final, fatal steps. Lieutenant Jenkins, facing an unprecedented level of internal resistance, knew he couldn't rely solely on the traditional channels of justice. He quietly reached out to a trusted contact in the FBI's Organized Crime Division, a veteran agent named Agent Torres, operating outside the city's compromised jurisdiction. Jenkins presented the unassailable evidence: Daniel's camera, the developed photographs, Dr. Sharma's forensic reports, Maria's testimony, and the burgeoning financial trail linking local politicians to the Shark. Torres, recognizing the gravity and scale of the corruption, promised federal oversight and resources, providing a much-needed external leverage that could bypass the compromised local institutions, finally giving them a fighting chance against the powerful forces arrayed against them. With federal resources now covertly in play, the hunt for Mr. Thorne intensified. Daniel's final cryptic note pointing to this shadowy figure became their primary focus. They delved into old city records, cross-referencing names associated with the shell corporations and the politically connected individuals. They meticulously analyzed patterns of influence, tracking financial donations, and scrutinizing land development deals that seemed to benefit only a select few. The picture that emerged was of a master manipulator, a ghost in the system, whose name rarely appeared on official documents but whose fingerprints were subtly evident on every major corrupt deal, a puppet master pulling the strings from the deepest shadows of the city. The true chilling realization came when they connected Mr. Thorne to a series of seemingly legitimate, high-profile civic projects initiated around the time of Daniel's disappearance. Thorne was not just a criminal mastermind, he was an architect of power, a figure who had skillfully woven his illicit empire into the very fabric of the city's economic and political landscape. His influence was so pervasive that he had not only facilitated the Sharks' drug operations, but had also orchestrated the initial cover-up of Daniel Hayes' murder, ensuring the silence for 15 long years. He was the ultimate protector, the unseen hand that had kept the truth buried, his power extending far beyond mere street crime, reaching into the deepest, most sacred offices of the city. The final piece of Daniel's puzzle, painstakingly reconstructed from his fragmented notes and the newly acquired federal data, pointed to a name that sent a collective shiver down their spines. Mr. Thorne was not merely a code name, it was an alias, concealing the true identity of a figure of immense public standing and seemingly unimpeachable reputation, a man who had been above suspicion for decades. This revelation didn't just escalate the conflict, it detonated it, transforming their investigation into a direct confrontation with the most powerful, untouchable individual in the city, the one person who truly held the keys to Daniel Hayes' murder and 15 years of systemic corruption. The game was no longer about exposing a network, it was about taking down an empire, and the true identity of Mr. Thorne would change everything. The sterile quiet of Lieutenant Jenkins' secure, windowless office felt less like a sanctuary and more like a pressure cooker, the air thick with unspoken fears and the lingering scent of stale coffee. Sarah Miller sat opposite Jenkins, Agent Torres from the FBI, a silent, imposing presence beside her, the small room feeling impossibly claustrophobic under the weight of their collective burden. On the table, stark against the polished wood, lay the ominous typed note, "Some truths are better left buried." Its message, once a chilling warning, now felt like a direct, personal taunt, a defiant challenge from an unseen enemy. Each tick of the wall clock echoed the frantic beat of Sarah's heart, a relentless rhythm counting down to the moment a name, a single, powerful name, would finally shatter 15 years of calculated silence, exposing the true architect of Daniel Hayes' brutal demise and the city's insidious rot. The federal team, operating with a speed and secrecy that local authorities could only dream of, had painstakingly pieced together Daniel's final, cryptic clues. His hidden notes, a jumble of seemingly disparate dates, obscure company names, and veiled references, had been fed into advanced analytical software, cross-referenced with decades of public records, financial transactions, and political donations. Agent Torres, his face etched with grim satisfactions, slid a single laminated sheet across the table. "This," he stated, his voice low but resonant, "is what Daniel Hayes died trying to expose. This is Mr. Thorne." The simple act of presenting the document was charged with immense gravity, the culmination of Sarah's relentless pursuit, Daniel's ultimate sacrifice, and the federal agency's covert, meticulous work, all leading to this singular, explosive revelation that promised to shake the very foundations of the city. Sarah's gaze fell upon the photograph on the sheet, her breath catching in her throat, a sharp, involuntary gasp. It was a face she knew, a face plastered on billboards and featured in every society column, a man whose name was synonymous with philanthropy and civic pride. The accompanying biographical details confirmed it. Arthur Thorne, CEO of Thorne Holdings, prominent real estate developer, esteemed community leader. The name, Mr. Thorne, wasn't just an alias, it was a grotesque mockery, a thinly veiled disguise for a public figure who had actively cultivated an image of unimpeachable integrity while orchestrating a criminal empire from the shadows. The sheer audacity of his deception, the brazenness of his double life, struck Sarah with a sickening force, twisting her stomach into a cold, hard knot of disbelief and righteous fury. A profound silence descended upon the small office, so heavy it felt suffocating, punctuated only by the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. Sarah felt a cold sweat prickle her skin, her fingers trembling as she reached out, almost involuntarily, to touch the polished surface of the photograph. The image of Arthur Thorne, smiling benignly, seemed to mock her from the page, his eyes, once perceived as benevolent, now piercing her with an icy, predatory gleam. Jenkins, who had been leaning forward, slowly sank back into his chair, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor running through him, a stark admission of the magnitude of the betrayal. The air, already thick with anticipation, now crackled with the raw energy of a truth too long suppressed, too dangerous to fully comprehend, finally breaking free from its 15-year prison. Arthur Thorne. The name reverberated in Sarah's mind, a chilling echo of Daniel's final, desperate struggle for justice. He wasn't merely a powerful businessman. He was the city's unofficial kingmaker, his influence stretching from the construction sites that reshaped the skyline to the hushed corridors of political power. His philanthropic donations had funded countless campaigns, ensuring loyalty and silencing dissent. The same shell corporations Daniel had cryptically noted were now clearly linked to Thorne Holdings, funneling, quote, the shark's illicit drug profits into legitimate-looking real estate ventures, effectively laundering millions and cementing Thorne's iron grip on the city's economic and political landscape. This was not just a case of corruption, it was a meticulously constructed empire of deceit, built on a foundation of fear, intimidation, and the brutal silencing of anyone who dared to challenge its architect. Thorne's network was a hydra, its heads reaching into every facet of civic life. Deputy Chief Maxwell, implicated by Maria Rodriguez, was merely one of many high-ranking officials on Thorne's payroll, ensuring police protection for the Sharks drug shipments and orchestrating the initial cover-up of Daniel's murder. Corrupt judges discreetly dismissed cases. City council members approved dubious zoning changes, all benefiting Thorne Holdings and its illicit partners. The Shark, once thought to be the apex of the criminal food chain, was merely Thorne's enforcer, his brutal efficiency a tool for maintaining order and fear within the empire. Arthur Thorne was the ultimate puppet master, pulling every string, ensuring absolute impunity for 15 years, his very public image a perfect, impenetrable shield against any suspicion. A wave of overwhelming emotion washed over Sarah, grief for Daniel, now amplified by the sheer scale of the forces he had faced alone, anger at the systemic betrayal, and a profound sense of personal responsibility. The tarnished silver locket, which she now instinctively clutched in her hand, felt like a burning coal, a tangible manifestation of Daniel's sacrifice and the immense burden of truth she now carried. His death wasn't just a consequence of exposing corruption. It was a direct, calculated act to protect Arthur Thorne's vast, insidious empire. Sarah felt a fierce, almost primal urge to scream, to rail against the injustice, but instead, a cold, hard resolve solidified within her. Daniel's voice had been silenced, but hers would now speak for both of them, louder and more determined than ever. "Thorne won't go down quietly," Agent Torres stated, his voice cutting through the heavy air, his eyes fixed on the photograph. "He's too powerful, too connected. This isn't just an arrest, it's a war." The chilling message. Some truths are better left buried, now resonated with terrifying clarity, a direct threat from Arthur Thorne himself, a promise of retaliation for anyone who dared to unearth his secrets. Sarah understood, with stark, bone-chilling certainty, that she, Jenkins, and Torres had just placed targets squarely on their backs. The danger that had consumed Daniel Hayes 15 years ago was now breathing down their necks, an omnipresent, suffocating force. The stakes had escalated beyond mere justice. It was now a fight for their very lives against a man who had proven he would stop at nothing to protect his empire. Jenkins, his face grim but resolute, turned to Torres. "We move fast. No leaks. No warning. We hit him where he least expects it." The plan began to take shape with military precision. Federal warrants would be secured under the tightest secrecy, bypassing compromised local channels. A specialized FBI tactical team, brought in from out of state and completely uncompromised, would be assembled. Every detail, from the timing of the raid to the secure transport of Thorne, was meticulously discussed and strategized. The objective was not just to arrest him, but to dismantle his entire network, to sever every tentacle of his cancerous influence. This was their one chance, their only opportunity to bring down the man who had orchestrated Daniel Hayes' murder and corrupted an entire city for 15 long years. The ideal moment for the strike presented itself unexpectedly. Arthur Thorne was scheduled to deliver the keynote address at the city's annual charity gala, a glittering event attended by the city's elite, held in the grand ballroom of the historic Metropolitan Hotel. It was a public stage, a fortress of his carefully cultivated respectability, the last place he would ever expect to be exposed. The irony was palpable. The architect of the city's deepest corruption would be unmasked in front of the very society he had systematically betrayed. This was not just an arrest, it was a symbolic act, a public declaration that the truth, however long buried, would always find its way to the light, shattering the illusion of power and impunity. Under the cloak of a moonless night, a convoy of unmarked federal vehicles moved silently through the city streets, their presence a stark, almost invisible contrast to the opulent glow emanating from the Metropolitan Hotel. Sarah, seated beside Agent Torres, felt the hum of the engine beneath her, a low thrumming that matched the frantic beat of her heart. Through the tinted windows, she saw the flashing cameras of paparazzi, the elegant gowns and sharp tuxedos of the arriving guests, a world oblivious to the impending storm. The air inside the vehicle was charged with a heavy, metallic scent of anticipation and cold determination. Each block they passed felt like a step closer to a precipice, a moment of profound, irreversible change, where the weight of Daniel's legacy would finally collide with the impenetrable facade of Arthur Thorne's power. The ballroom was a dazzling spectacle of crystal chandeliers and hushed conversations, the clinking of glasses, a counterpoint to Thorne's booming voice from the podium, extolling the virtues of civic responsibility. Then, a sudden sharp command cut through the polite applause. "FBI, Arthur Thorne, you're under arrest." The room plunged into chaos, a collective gasp rippling through the stunned crowd as Agent Torres, flanked by his tactical team, strode purposefully towards the stage. Thorne's eyes, usually calculating and serene, widened in a flicker of raw, disbelieving panic, his carefully constructed mask finally cracking. The microphone clattered to the floor, echoing the shattering of his carefully maintained illusion. As federal agents moved in, their movements swift and decisive, bringing down the kingpin of the city's hidden empire in front of his shocked, bewildered subjects. As the handcuffs clicked shut around Arthur Thorne's wrists, his eyes, now devoid of their previous panic, locked onto Sarah's. A chilling, almost imperceptible smirk touched his lips, a silent, defiant message passing between them. "You think this is over, journalist?" he whispered, his voice low, laden with an unsettling calm that sent a shiver down her spine. "You have no idea how deep this truly goes." His gaze lingered for a moment, an unspoken threat, a promise of unseen forces still lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment. The elegant ballroom, now a scene of disarray, felt suddenly vast and cold, filled with the echoes of his words, leaving Sarah with the unsettling certainty that while one battle had been won, the war for the city's soul was far from over, and Daniel Hayes' legacy still held secrets yet to be revealed. The opulent ballroom, moments ago a shimmering tableau of the city's elite, now resembled a battlefield in the wake of Arthur Thorne's dramatic arrest. The swift, decisive action of Agent Torres and his FBI tactical team sent shockwaves far beyond the historic Metropolitan Hotel, echoing through every newsroom and political office. Headlines blared, television reports flashed, and radio waves crackled with the unprecedented news. The city's most revered philanthropist, Arthur Thorne, was, in fact, Mr. Thorne, the shadowy mastermind behind a 15-year criminal enterprise that had corrupted law enforcement and facilitated a notorious drug lord. The carefully constructed edifice of his public image crumbled instantly, revealing the monstrous truth beneath, a truth Daniel Hayes had died trying to expose, now finally brought to the harsh, unforgiving light of public scrutiny, shattering the comfortable complacency of an entire metropolis. In the days that followed, the full weight of federal resources descended upon Thorne Holdings, dismantling Arthur Thorne's vast financial and criminal empire with ruthless efficiency. Federal agents, unhampered by local corruption, systematically raided his offices, seized assets, and froze bank accounts, unraveling a labyrinthine web of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and illicit investments that stretched across the globe. The intricate network of money laundering, meticulously detailed in Daniel Hayes' recovered notes and now corroborated by advanced forensic accounting, was exposed in its entirety. This wasn't merely an arrest. It was a surgical strike against a deeply entrenched power structure, severing the tentacles of influence Thorne had so skillfully woven into the city's economic and political fabric, leaving a gaping void where his illicit empire once stood. Captain David Reynolds, already facing a murder charge for Daniel Hayes' death, found his carefully constructed lies unraveling under the relentless pressure of federal interrogation. Confronted with the irrefutable forensic evidence from his backyard, the autopsy report detailing Daniel's brutal end, and the chilling photographs from Daniel's camera, his defiant composure finally shattered. In a desperate bid for leniency, Reynolds confessed to his role in Daniel's murder, detailing how he, under Thorne's direct orders, had orchestrated the journalist's ambush, the beating, and the subsequent burial in his own backyard, a grotesque act of betrayal. His confession, a chilling testament to his profound moral decay, solidified the case against Thorne and exposed the ruthless efficiency with which Daniel had been silenced, confirming the ultimate fate of the man who had buried his friend. Deputy Chief Robert Maxwell, implicated by Maria Rodriguez's brave testimony, was arrested within hours of Thorne's takedown. The weight of Maria's account, detailing his coded radio exchanges with Reynolds on the night of Daniel's disappearance and his explicit instructions for loose ends to be tied off, proved insurmountable. Faced with the overwhelming evidence and the prospect of a lengthy federal sentence, Maxwell, a man whose ambition had once seemed boundless, quickly turned informant, offering a detailed, chilling account of Thorne's long-standing manipulation of the police department. He laid bare the intricate system of bribes, favors, and threats that had ensured the Shark's impunity and maintained the 15-year cover-up, revealing the systemic rot that had permeated the highest echelons of law enforcement, a stark betrayal of public trust. The Shark, whose real name was finally revealed as Marco Delgado, was apprehended in a swift, coordinated raid on his primary distribution hub, a seemingly legitimate seafood import business operating out of the city's docks. With Thorne's protection gone and Maxwell's detailed testimony providing crucial intelligence, Delgado's empire collapsed with surprising speed. The federal task force seized millions in cash, vast quantities of synthetic drugs, and a cache of illegal firearms, effectively dismantling his entire operation. The notorious drug lord, once untouchable, now faced a litany of charges, his reign of terror brought to a definitive end by the relentless pursuit of truth initiated by a long-dead journalist and brought to fruition by Sarah Miller and her allies, ensuring that the key beneficiary of the corruption finally faced justice. The trial of Arthur Thorne, Captain David Reynolds, Deputy Chief Robert Maxwell, and several other implicated officers became a national spectacle, dominating headlines for weeks. The courtroom, packed with journalists and a shocked public, became the crucible, where 15 years of lies were systematically burned away by the relentless fire of truth. The prosecution, spearheaded by a formidable federal attorney, meticulously presented the evidence. Daniel's haunting photographs, Dr. Sharma's irrefutable forensic reports, Maria Rodriguez's trembling but steadfast testimony, and the intricate financial records that laid bare Thorne's vast criminal enterprise. Each piece of evidence, each witness's account, chipped away at the defendant's dwindling credibility, painting a vivid and horrifying picture of systemic corruption and cold-blooded murder, leaving no doubt about the extent of the conspiracy. Sarah Miller, called as a key witness, delivered a powerful, emotionally charged yet factually precise testimony. She recounted the chilling discovery of Daniel's camera, the moment the first images bled into existence in the darkroom, and the sickening realization that her friend's disappearance was, in fact, a murder orchestrated by the very men now sitting in the dock. She held up Daniel's tarnished silver locket, a poignant symbol of his personal life, contrasting it with the brutal indifference of his killers. Her voice, though occasionally strained with grief, resonated with an unwavering conviction, a testament to Daniel's legacy and her own relentless pursuit of justice, ensuring that the human cost of the defendant's crimes was never forgotten amidst the cold, hard facts of the courtroom. Emily Hayes, Daniel's younger sister, sat in the front row every day, her face a mask of quiet dignity and profound sorrow. For 15 years, she had carried the unbearable burden of uncertainty, clinging to a fragile hope that her brother might still be alive. Now, as the gruesome details of his murder and burial were laid bare, a new, agonizing grief washed over her, but also a profound sense of release. Seeing justice systematically unfold, witnessing the architects of her brother's suffering finally held accountable, brought a measure of peace she hadn't dared to dream of. Her silent presence, a constant reminder of the human heart of this tragedy, underscored the immense impact of Daniel's sacrifice and the long, arduous journey to finally achieve closure for her family. After weeks of gripping testimony and impassioned arguments, the verdicts were delivered. Arthur Thorne, Captain David Reynolds, Deputy Chief Robert Maxwell, and several other corrupt officers were found guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, conspiracy, racketeering, and obstruction of justice. The courtroom erupted in a collective gasp, followed by a wave of relief and solemn satisfaction. The subsequent sentencing brought harsh, definitive punishments. Thorne and Reynolds received life sentences without parole, ensuring they would spend the remainder of their lives behind bars, paying the ultimate price for their heinous crimes. Justice, long delayed, had finally been served, bringing a definitive end to the questions surrounding Daniel Hayes' disappearance and the corrupt network that had silenced him. The social and political fallout from the trials was immense and far-reaching. The city, once proud of its progressive image, grappled with the profound betrayal of trust, the deep-seated corruption exposed at its highest levels. Public outrage ignited widespread calls for radical police reform, increased governmental oversight, and greater transparency in civic dealings. A special commission was established to investigate systemic corruption, leading to the indictment of several more minor officials, and a complete overhaul of police internal affairs procedures. The comfortable complacency that had allowed Thorne's empire to flourish for so long was shattered, replaced by a renewed, albeit painful, commitment to accountability and integrity, forever changing the face of the city's governance and law enforcement. Daniel Hayes' legacy, once a tragic footnote in the annals of unsolved mysteries, was irrevocably transformed into a beacon of journalistic integrity and unwavering courage. His name, etched into the city's history, became synonymous with the relentless pursuit of truth. His sacrifice, a stark reminder of the immense power of investigative journalism. The analog camera, his silent witness, became a powerful symbol, now displayed in the newsroom where his journey began, a tangible testament to the truth it held and the justice it ultimately delivered. Daniel's story, finally told in its entirety, resonated far beyond the city limits, inspiring a new generation of journalists to confront the darkness, to challenge the powerful, and to never let the truth remain buried, no matter the cost. For Sarah Miller, the resolution brought a complex mix of emotions. The gnawing ache of Daniel's absence remained, a permanent scar, but it was now tempered by the profound satisfaction of having fulfilled her promise, of having avenged her friend and mentor. She had walked into the very same shadows that had swallowed Daniel whole, faced down threats, and stared into the abyss of systemic corruption, emerging bruised but resolute. The locket, which she now wore openly, was no longer just a reminder of loss, but a symbol of enduring courage and the unyielding power of truth. Her journey had transformed her, forging an even deeper commitment to journalism, knowing that some stories, however dangerous, simply must be told, for the sake of justice, and for the memory of those who died seeking it. The central question that had haunted Sarah for 15 years, who truly ordered Daniel Hayes' murder, and how extensive was the corruption network that covered up his crime, had been definitively answered. Arthur Thorne, the city's revered benefactor, was the architect, the puppet master, who commanded Captain David Reynolds and Deputy Chief Robert Maxwell to silence Daniel, protecting a vast criminal empire built on drug trafficking and political influence. The network was not just a few bad apples. It was a systemic rot, deeply embedded within law enforcement and civic governance, thriving in the shadows for over a decade. The truth, painstakingly unearthed by Daniel's camera and Sarah's tenacity, had finally brought down an empire, revealing a horrifying reality that had long been buried beneath a facade of respectability, forever changing the city. The city, once shrouded in a comfortable apathy, had been irrevocably altered by the raw, brutal light of truth. The fall of Arthur Thorne, the exposure of Captain Reynolds and Deputy Chief Maxwell, and the dismantling of the Sharks' empire were not just legal victories, they were a profound societal awakening. Streets that once hummed with a quiet fear now buzzed with a newfound, albeit fragile, hope for genuine change. The trials had ripped open old wounds, forcing a painful confrontation with the systemic corruption that had festered for 15 long years, a cancer on the very soul of the metropolis. This was the true legacy of Daniel Hayes, a force unleashed from the past, shattering illusions and demanding accountability, ensuring that the comfortable silence of complicity could never again fully descend upon its citizens. The air still carried the faint scent of change, a promise whispered on the wind, a testament to the power of a single, unwavering pursuit of justice against overwhelming odds. For Sarah Miller, the journey had been a crucible, forging her into a journalist more tenacious and resolute than ever before. The weight of Daniel's camera, once a cold, heavy burden, now felt like a sacred trust, a symbol of the profound connection that transcended death. She had walked through the shadow of danger, faced threats that echoed her mentor's fate, and emerged not unscathed, but undeniably stronger, her commitment to truth etched deeper into her very being. The locket, a small, intimate piece of Daniel's life, now rested openly around her neck, a constant, gleaming reminder of the human cost of their fight, a silent vow to continue his work, to be the voice for those who had been silenced. Her own narrative had become inextricably woven with his, a testament to the enduring power of friendship and the relentless pursuit of justice, no matter the personal toll. Daniel Hayes, the idealistic journalist whose life was brutally cut short, had achieved a posthumous triumph far greater than any headline he ever penned. His name, once a whispered memory of an unsolved mystery, was now a rallying cry, a testament to courage and unwavering integrity. The old newsroom, no longer a tomb of forgotten stories, became a vibrant monument to his spirit, a place where aspiring journalists gathered, inspired by his sacrifice. His analog camera, the silent witness that had held the key to his fate, was enshrined there, not as a relic, but as a living symbol of the power of truth, a constant reminder that even in the darkest corners, a single click of a shutter could ignite a revolution, shattering the comfortable silence of corruption and demanding accountability from the powerful. The fallout from Thorne's empire exposed the pervasive fragility of the city's democratic institutions. The police department, once seen as an impenetrable bastion of authority, was forced into a painful public reckoning, undergoing radical reforms designed to root out systemic corruption and restore public trust. New oversight committees, citizen review boards, and stringent transparency measures were implemented, a direct consequence of the revelations. The legal system, too, faced intense scrutiny, with calls for greater accountability for judges and prosecutors who had allowed Thorne's influence to fester for so long. This wasn't merely a cleanup. It was a fundamental reevaluation of how power was wielded and protected, a stark lesson in the eternal vigilance required to safeguard justice and prevent the insidious creep of unchecked authority. For Emily Hayes, Daniel's sister, the verdicts brought a profound, if bittersweet, sense of closure. 15 years of agonizing uncertainty, of holding on to a phantom hope, had finally given way to the undeniable truth. The grief remained, a deep, abiding ache for the brother she lost, but it was now accompanied by the quiet satisfaction of justice served. She often visited the newsroom, finding solace in Sarah's presence and in the shared memory of Daniel, a life brutally taken but never truly forgotten. The community, too, began a slow process of healing, confronting the difficult truths about its own complicity and indifference, emerging from the shadows with a renewed, if cautious, commitment to building a more transparent and just society, honoring Daniel's sacrifice through collective action. Yet, even with justice served, a chilling question lingered in the quiet corners of the city. How many other Thornes still operated in the shadows, their empires of deceit carefully constructed, their public facades impenetrable? The exposure of one powerful criminal network did not erase the fundamental human capacity for greed and corruption. It served as a stark reminder that the fight for truth was an ongoing, relentless battle, a continuous vigilance against the insidious forces that sought to manipulate, to control, and to silence. The arrests were a victory, a monumental step forward, but the underlying mechanisms that allowed such rot to fester remained a constant threat, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the opportune moment to re-emerge, challenging the very notion of a truly just society. Daniel's analog camera, now a silent sentinel in the newsroom, became more than just a historical artifact. It was a potent, living symbol. Its dusty lens, once an eye capturing fleeting moments, now represented the unblinking gaze of truth, forever challenging the powerful and exposing the hidden. It was a tangible testament to the idea that even the most seemingly insignificant objects could hold the key to monumental revelations, that a single act of defiance frozen in time could ignite a movement for justice decades later. The camera's legacy was not just in what it captured, but in the enduring message it conveyed, that the pursuit of truth, however perilous, however long it might take, was a moral imperative, a duty that transcended personal risk and the passage of time, forever shaping the future. Sarah Miller, now a celebrated figure in her own right, understood that Daniel's story was not an ending, but a profound beginning. She continued his work, her investigations more focused, her resolve sharpened by the crucible of experience. Her journalistic approach, a powerful blend of relentless factual pursuit and deep emotional resonance, inspired a new generation, proving that even in an age of instant information, the painstaking, dangerous work of true investigative reporting remained vital. She often spoke of Daniel, not as a victim, but as a beacon, a reminder that the most impactful stories were often the ones buried deepest, waiting for a tenacious hand to unearth them, to bring them into the light, ensuring that no voice, however long silenced, would remain unheard. The legacy of Daniel Hayes, carried forward by Sarah Miller, became a stark, undeniable truth, etched into the city's very soul, that the pursuit of justice is not a singular event, but a perpetual struggle, a flame that must be constantly tended against the encroaching darkness of corruption. His camera, his final defiant act, had not only solved a 15-year-old murder, but had ignited a profound reckoning, tearing down an empire of lies and forcing a city to confront its hidden demons. It proved that even when buried for decades, the truth, armed with courage and an unwavering spirit, will always find its way to the light, demanding to be heard. But as the echoes of Thorne's words, "You have no idea how deep this truly goes," still lingered, one had to wonder, how many more secrets still lay buried beneath the city's polished facade, waiting for the next tenacious journalist to uncover them?